Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another stock market outlook video brought to you by DFew. As always, we're going to run through the market indexes, leading stocks, leading groups, and there's a lot to talk about this week given the corrective nature of last week, the gap down on Wednesday, fall through to the downside on Thursday and Friday, and we're going to dive all into that. But first things first, I just want to say thank you guys all for tuning in. Please leave a like down below if you do enjoy this. And before we get going, I do want to mention a free resource that's going on right now, likely when you're watching this video, and that is the Traderline Conference featuring almost 30 top speakers. And day one starts at 9 a.m. Eastern today on Saturday, July 20th. It'll be streamed over on the Traderline channel. I'll be linking that down below in the description. And I'd highly recommend you guys check it out. We've got a great breadth of speakers, market wizards, top traders, trading psychology experts, authors, you name it, we've got it. And there's going to be so many excellent tips shared, setups, and I think you guys will get a whole lot out of it. So definitely go ahead and check that out. Either right now, pause this video, come back, or you can go ahead and watch this video and then go over to the stream. But here's the schedule for today. Some great presenters, and I highly recommend you guys check that out. Again, it's over on the Traderline channel. Okay, so with that said, as I mentioned, there's a lot to talk about today, given the pullback in the market. We're back below that 21 EMA. Also, of course, we have the Crowdstrike news, which happened Friday morning. I think surprised a lot of people. It's amazing how this happens after a stock has already, showed warning signs up here, is already below the 21 EMA, but we'll get to that in just a minute. And first things first, I want to start with the general markets, and let's go to the QQQ here in my market monitor dashboard. This is kind of my setup for analyzing the markets. We've got the index here, index ETF. We've got breadth down here. There's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive right in. First, for me, especially, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that the 21 EMA is kind of my guiding light in terms of analyzing the market. With respect to the QQQ. If we're above a rising 21 EMA, likely my style of trading, growth stocks, momentum, position trading, it's going to be working. But when we're below a declining 21 EMA, the odds flip, the other way. It's probably not the time to be aggressive. It's time to be patient, focus on, improving your system, being less aggressive, being more defensive if I've still got positions on that are acting well. And just, taking my foot off the gas pedal and waiting for that environment to set up again, because, you might not believe this, but we will be back above a rising 21 EMA at some point. So this current market cycle, if we look at this base here back in April and May of this year, we popped above the 21 EMA on this day right here. This is when the rally begins, the market cycle begins, and from this point we progress strongly. If we just do a percentage wise, 16% to highs, 15% to highs. TQQQ was much more than that. That's one way to play it as well. But basically you want to be increasing exposure early on in the trend, and after key kind of turning points, retest of that 21 EMA, reconfirmations to the upside, that's when you want to be kind of finding those sweet spots, finding those entry points. And that's where the leaders will be setting up early on in the trend, and then at those key pullback reconfirmation moments. But once we get below the 21 EMA, especially with a gap down and go, things are changing. The environment's changing, and how you're trading, how aggressive you're being should change as well. And this kind of started with this break down here. I saw, David Ryan mentioned this. JT also mentioned this bar being a 3-bar break to the downside. After we were short-term extended, everybody saw that, but we just kept trending higher until this bar right here. And this kind of forms, a big downside reversal, breaks all these lows. There's no support. And it's just a sign that, there's some serious selling pressure coming to the market. This wide range of bar, I think this is the widest range bar, maybe since this upside reversal, but definitely to the downside, a very wide range bar in the context of an already kind of short-term extended rally. And at that point, we kind of wedged higher a little bit. There's some more selling signals on this day and this day. Look at the closes right here. We're just kind of teetering over that 10 EMA. And then what do we get? We get the semiconductor news that hit in the morning, and that was just an excuse for that the market really needed to gap down and continue lower and see more selling pressure into the end of the week. So this warning sign, this 3-bar break to the downside, where in 1 bar we take out all these 3 lows, that's something to look out for, especially when we're short-term extended. Just obey the trend until your trend system tells you that the trend is weakening or over. And for me, this is a sign here. These failure to push higher and recoup that is a sign, and then especially the reconfirmation lower, the wedge drop here. If you follow the Oliver Kell system, that's a sign to we basically might need a whole nother base or a retest of this 50 SMA, which could be extremely likely. We've also got this gap low. I know some people have been pointing out nice confluence down here. So maybe this is a logical spot to look for support, but still you're on the left-hand side of the base at this point. You got to wait until that right side develops, that next wedge pop, the next push above the 21 EMA. Okay, so with that said, that spiel said, just kind of a reminder for everybody who kind of likes using the 21 EMA, needs kind of to develop their market cycle. That's kind of how I'm processing this trend. And now I'm just kind of waiting for that next line of action. And I'm watching that 50 SMA to see if it becomes support or if we will maybe have a deeper correction and this kind of level becomes relevant, or this previous high. Those are kind of levels to the downside. No idea if we get there. We'll just have to take it one day at a time and see what happens. Looking at the QQQE, very similar action, very sharp decline off the top. To me, this isn't a healthy pullback to the 50 SMA. It more looks like a failed breakout at this point. So we'll see if we can build a range here in this area where we've basically found support before. We've got this breadth thrust, but breadth is only good, when it supports the market. And it seemed like when the breadth came in is when things kind of went sour. So I think Oliver put out a tweet, I preferred when breadth was weak, back in this area where things were really trending and acting well. I kind of share that sentiment, but on this, we'll see how this builds against the 50 SMA and just see what happens. Looking at the IWM, obviously we had that significant rotation into small caps, strong breakout, and this still isn't invalidated because we're staying above the key moving averages, but this is a very sharp decline off the top. Again, some selling signals up here with the poor close, downside reversal again. We try to push up here on Thursday, really bad close here. So this looks short term very weak, and we'll see if it can build out and hold above the moving averages. This is a significant breakout from a longer term cup with handle. This is kind of the longer term resistance line, and it's a big move on volume. But right now in the very short term, it's not a time to be super aggressive, but continue to watch this, continue to monitor it for sure. MDY kind of mid caps, very similar story, a little bit weaker, not as strong a breakout and pulling back to that 10 EMA. TLT, just kind of still basing here. We'll see which direction it chooses. A little bit of a gap down on Friday, but holding above a rising 50-day moving average. And looking at the dollar, this is just still kind of basing, but moving up higher these 3 days in converse to what the market's doing. So that's a quick run through of the indexes. And also I wanted to mention IBIT. This is a theme I'll be talking about a lot about today. And this is definitely one area that's working, and it's probably the leading group right now in the market, as you can see from the 5-day performance charts, which we'll get to in just a second. But first things first, bringing up the mega caps, we've got Amazon below the key moving averages, not a great look, failed breakout as well from this base. Microsoft a little bit stronger, holding the top of this base for now, but again, right at that 50 SMA looks a little bit weak. Meta below the moving averages. Apple stronger, just trending above that 21 EMA. We'll see if it can find support in this area. Google a little bit weaker right at the 50 SMA. Nvidia, I don't like this gap. We've got a range here forming, and we'll have to just kind of wait and see which direction this range resolves itself, whether this will be kind of an island bottom or just will kind of reconfirm down from this potential bear flag at the 50 SMA. The next kind of support line would be the top of this base. Lastly, we've got Tesla, very strong up the right-hand side, but reconfirmed, broke these lows, 3-bar break to the downside, and might just need time to build out, another base here. And we'll see if it can find support at that 21 EMA. Looking at the theme ETFs, I I'm sorting right now by the price percent change 5 days. And that's because if we look at the QQQ, this decline kind of started about 7 bars ago. So we'll actually switch this up to price percent change 7 days, see how that changes things. Not too much. So TNA, strongest, IBIT, IBLC, ARCG, basically the themes have been biotech, blockchain is the strongest one, and then the small caps, and also a few kind of interest rate sensitive groups as well. But this is a super handy visualization feature, and you can see even better in the performance charts here if we go ahead and load that up. And let's change these as well to price percent change. Let's do 5 days here because I think that gives a better picture. Let's go ahead and load that up. You can basically pick any data point from these drop downs. Super handy visualization tool. And let's do that as well for the deep view leader screen. And you can see that the coins are up here. Zeta has been holding up really well. We'll take a look at that stock. But Coin, HUT, CLSK, all those are acting really well. Some biotechs here. IBIT is the clear leader over the past 5 days. KRE in there, ITB, TNA, OIH in there as well. So that's kind of where the rotation is flowing. And to the downside, semis all the way at the bottom. So it's pretty clear what groups you should be focused on if you're looking for longs, if you're looking for shorts at this point, and make sure with anything you've got an edge and you're managing risk. That's the most important thing. Hack we'll also talk about, of course, with Crowdstrike. But in terms of leading groups, we've got blockchain right now. We've got biotech, and that's kind of it. Some interest rate sensitive ones. And then to the downside, semis have really lost favor with those gap downs. And we'll just have to see if they can build ranges and resolve themselves. Yeah, so let's go ahead now and move on to individual stocks. Of course, CrowdStrike, we had the news event here. It's crazy how, it was showing, failed breakouts down in here, downside reversal, reconfirmation to the downside, 2 big warning signs, then kind of a bear flag. It tried to push up, reconfirmed, poor close here, reconfirmation to the downside. So, at the very least, this is where you should have been out. A close below the 50 after a bear flag reconfirmation to the downside, breaking below this base pivot. So if you're listening to price action, you should not have been caught in this downside here unless you're looking to hold for the long term and your cost is way down here. And that's another situation. But to me, this, it's a huge volume bar, the biggest in quite some time. We'll see what ramifications this has for the business. If we bring up the stats chart, still pretty strong growth. We'll see if it loses some customers. It may. There's probably going to be, a decent amount of volatility with this name in the coming days. But this is a potential kind of reversal extension if you want to use the Oliver Kell cycle. We'll just have to see if it builds out. Or, it could just kind of reverse lower, base and break lower. But I'm just kind of watching this and kind of waiting for the next base to form and see if it's still a part of a leading group, still a leading stock. But it's interesting how it found support at the bottom of this base, as well as this is basically the highs from back in 2021. And also, if you plot the 200-day moving average, that's pretty much right here on the chart. So it's interesting how things are lining up. The news is very negative about this stock right now. But we'll just have to see how the situation resolves itself. Don't need to predict. All you have to do is kind of react and listen to your setups and see if it's, the best candidate for your money. It has to earn that spot. It has to earn your respect, your money. Just wanted to touch on that because it is definitely in the news. So with that said, let's go ahead and open it up to the rest of the DFU leaders. I also kind of added a column this week to price percent change over the past 5 days to give you a sense of what's outperforming over the past 5 days when we've been in this correction. Coin for sure, setting up on the right-hand side along with Bitcoin. Retest the 10 EMA, the key moving averages here, and great reaction Friday. I mean, look at this bar, super strong action, and looks like it'll kind of try to push this midpoint pivot. And you could have entered on the wedge pop or on this EMA crossback. I tried it in here. I got stopped, unfortunately, and didn't rebuy back Friday, but I'll be watching for the next tight area. It wasn't very, very tight here. I took a pretty small loss, versus lows, and I'll just kind of wait for the next setup. Still very early on here, and we'll see if it can push through this midpoint or set up another tight area. That's what I'll be looking for personally. Hut as well, just been trending beautifully, very, very strong. Mara also in the Bitcoin theme as well, similar action, pop above the moving averages, gap up, and now kind of pulling back to that 10 EMA area. We'll see if it can continue to push up and move up the right-hand side and ideally have another run just like this. Moving on, Zeta is definitely worth keeping an eye on. Very strong relative strength versus the market, very tight the last few days. So if a stock has been holding the 10 EMA, it's been going sideways over the past few days, is near highs, is, tightening up on low volume. Those are all signs that the stock is showing relative strength versus the market at this point. And maybe it's not buyable right now, but you want to keep it on your list so you're referring back to it and seeing if it sets up when the general market conditions are ripe to buy. And let's go ahead and clear sorting and sort by that 5% change. LMND, just powerful move off lows. You can see how it was very tight according to RMV back in this area. From tightness comes expansion. That looks great. And the rest, there's not too much to talk about. A lot of these are just kind of, power moves off the bottom, ground transportation, household durables, not really my focus, banks. So, there's not too many growth areas working right now. LEGN, biotech move off the bottom. So there's not too much that's interesting. S, of course, in the same industry as CrowdStrike. We had likely the bottom back here on earnings, and now just kind of forming out a big base, one to watch. We'll see if maybe more partners from CrowdStrike transfer over to this, but we'll see that in the numbers and just have to kind of wait and see what happens. Hood, definitely worth taking an eye on, holding that 21 EMA. So again, showing relative strength, a little bit of a failed breakout, but it's still holding above that 21 EMA when the market is below. So that's one to watch as well. TMDX just kind of going sideways, showing RS. Keep an eye on this one right at that base pivot. I also want to show GTLB. Actually, yeah, there's not much to show with GTLB. Just kind of show, popping up a little bit. Still overall, just kind of in that stage one here when it comes to stage analysis. And we'll see if it can break through these highs finally around 72 if it gets back up there. KD, pretty close to near highs, forming a tight range here. So let's actually go ahead and instead of sorting by percent change 5-day, let's sort by RMV. This is often how I run through my stocks. I look for tight areas, which basically means RMV near zero. And the tight area has to be in a spot that's actionable. It has to be up the right-hand side of a base or compressing back against a moving average. It's not just buying a tight area in the middle of nowhere when a stock's already run. It's looking for a tight spot, a tight pullback. So Rivian kind of is one to watch against that 10 EMA. You've also got this area of confluence this high. So this would be one that I'd put on my wider watch list to take a look at. INSM, just kind of, this is actually, potential swing trade setup. This can really pop, forming a tight area. Nice pullback. CRS, one to watch. All of these. So you're looking for tight areas up the right-hand side or forming flags back into potential areas of support. LNTH, really strong RS these 2 days. Huge breakout. I think this is regulatory news and now just kind of flagging another name to watch and add to your overall watch list. So that's kind of my thoughts so far, my wide range thoughts on the market, on leading groups, on leading stocks. Let me know your thoughts down below. Reddit, pulling back to this base pivot. I'll be watching this one as it forms a range here. NVIDIA, this is a range. We'll see how it resolves itself. And the big question is, are we still, are we just entering a correction? Are we just having a pullback? And we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the index ETFs, the stocks will tell us. We don't have to predict. All we have to do is react. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, right now should be the stream for the conference. Definitely go ahead and check that out. Again, the link will be down below in the description. But thanks so much for tuning in. And if you did enjoy, please go ahead and leave a like down below. Really helps me out and the channel. Leave a comment down below. That helps as well. Helps the algorithm let you know that you enjoyed. And also go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.